Hey, everybody. So glad you could join us today. I wanted to let you know today's practice is going to be a little bit on the shorter side because we have some work that we're doing today with our abdomens and our backs. And so today's practice, we typically, because so many of us are just sitting and kind of hunched over on our phones for most of the day these days, we don't have really strong cores or strong backs. And so the reason for it being so short is because I want to help protect your back and core and build it up slowly over time. So we're going to start with a meditation today by Kate Shipp. And she is talking about some things that she's discovering in her own life related to her and how that relates to her business. But I thought, you know what, for a lot of us who are doing the hard work of, of self-discovery, of transformation, of, looking at like how we show up in the world and is that who we want to be and what are the gifts that God has placed inside of me that I haven't either been using or haven't discovered or maybe haven't been using to their full potential yet. And so I'm going to read this. It's a little bit longer, but it's kind of on the front end. I want to read this to us and then I'll lead us through our practice today. So that way then we can have this in mind as we do these kind of progressive poses with our core and with our backs today. So if you want to go ahead and just get into a comfortable position, you can either sit on your mat or you can lay down, or if you are in a comfy chair or something and you're like, I'm good already, like feel free to stay there. But just take a few deep breaths in your nose, out of your mouth. Just resting and relaxing and kind of bringing all of yourself and your thoughts to this present moment. So go ahead and breathe with me. Inhale and exhale. Another deep inhale and exhale. Last one. Inhale and exhale. And then as you continue to allow your breath to flow naturally, hear these words. She writes, "We are meant to evolve, and when we resist, suffering is the result. Accepting change is not always easy for me. I know change is the only constant, and yet, as a very sensitive human, my nervous system still finds it difficult at times. Over the past few months, I have been in a deep space of contemplation, reflection, and evolution. When my dad died in January of 2023, I knew I was in for a journey of evolution. I just didn't know what that meant at the time. Over the past 18 months, from when he was diagnosed until now, I felt this calling from the deep. And only one other time in my life have I felt that. Resistance did nothing helpful. It only caused internal suffering. So here I am again, a rumbling, a reckoning inside my heart to dig a little deeper, cocoon just enough for metamorphosis to occur and to find my way out the other side. I sat in meditation. I took many walks. I moved through my yoga practices. I journaled. I prayed. I cried a lot. I contemplated. I sat in nature. I breathed. I sought out help from those I knew I could trust. I traveled. I lost relationships. I gained sacred bonds. I got rid of things I didn't need anymore. I chose intentionally how I wanted to use my energy. I used my voice in uncomfortable yet necessary ways. I set new boundaries and I evaluated old ones. I challenged myself. I dove a little deeper. I listened. I got very, very still. I listened more. I began to emerge. I started to see things quite differently. I made new choices. I kept things quiet. I kept hearing, just wait. Then I shifted. Like a kaleidoscope that can never go back to what it once showed. It wasn't a moment of fireworks. It was so subtle, so soft, so gentle, and yet the impact inside my nervous system and heart was so powerful that I have not been the same since. After many months of this internal reorganization taking effect, I began to look at my business. What was working, what wasn't, what was outdated, what was seeking to be expressed. And we can do the same things in our own lives. I know, again, that she's talking about her business, but we can look and evaluate what's working, what isn't, what's outdated, what is seeking to be expressed. She continues to write, it was time for the external to match the internal once again. I called on my support team and began the process of evolving my business to match my new energy, to shift the words to match the message, to shift the offerings to match the evolution, and to give permission to embody the authenticity of the blueprint of God's design. And then she continues to talk about ways that she felt like she always had to conform in her life or fit into other people's expectations, and how part of this kaleidoscopic shifting for her was actually a shift away from people's expectations and to actually bring forth the gifts that God had put inside of her already. And so she finishes by saying, I made a promise to myself to show up, to see, to hear, to sense, and to allow all that I've been blessed to experience and trained in to be shared by using it to help others, reclaiming safety, embracing their multifaceted brilliance, and embodying authentic freedom. And so today, as we move throughout our practice, my invitation is, again, for you to consider Kate Chip's words of, what's working, what's not, what is longing to be expressed, and some of the shifts maybe that we need to make, whether they're really big shifts or whether they might be just some subtle shifts that seem to change everything. So if you guys will join me, we're going to move onto our mats, if you're not already there. And we're going to lie down on our backs to start. Bringing your knees into your chest. Just taking a moment. Leaving your right knee there, go ahead and extend your left leg out long. And then take that right foot up toward the ceiling, just very gently. If you'd like to roll your ankle around, you can. If you need to find some stillness today, you can. And then slowly allow that leg to come out to the side. Using your right hand for support. Drawing that left hand down alongside your body. Taking in some deep breaths. And drawing that back to center. We're going to bend that knee. We're going to take that foot down to the mat. Bring the left knee into the chest. We're going to extend the right leg all the way down to the mat. Again, using your deep breathing techniques here. Extending that left leg up toward the ceiling. Again, just allowing it to stretch out your hamstring. Feel free to roll your ankle around if you would like. And then when you're ready, you're going to start to allow that leg to draw out to the side, this time supporting with your left hand and arm. Taking that right hand down alongside your body. Continuing to breathe. And drawing that back to center. Go ahead and bend that knee into your chest. Allow that foot to come down. Allow the other foot to come up. We're going to do that whole series again, this time with our feet firmly planted on the mat. So we're going to draw that right knee into the chest. And and taking that right foot up toward the ceiling and drawing that out to the side. Take a deep breath here when you get here. See if you can keep your opposite hip down on the mat. So you're not turning off to the side. You're keeping this hip anchored in. And drawing that back to center. Go ahead and bend that knee, hug it into the chest, and then release that foot back down. This time taking the left knee into the chest. Taking that foot up toward the ceiling. Taking a nice deep breath here. And then draw that out to the side. Pausing here for a breath. And then drawing that back into center. Bending the knee, hugging the knee into the chest. And then allowing that foot to come down onto the mat. We're going to go ahead and take both hands behind our knees and rock ourselves up into a seated position here. So finding a comfortable seated position. We're going to sit nice and tall with our hands on the front side of our knees. And we're going to start to move into a seated cat-cow. So that means, we're going to open up our chest as we kind of roll forward a little bit, looking up toward the ceiling. And then we're going to arch our back, sitting back onto our tailbones, using the hands on the front side of the knees for support as you do so, touching the chin. Good stretch in between those shoulder blades. And then coming back into that open chested position. And then as you exhale, rocking back onto your tailbone. And then just following your own breath here. So inhaling, moving forward. When you're ready for your exhale, moving backwards. Going back and forth between those two, just a few times. Back to our neutral seated position here. We're going to actually take our arms, we're going to lift them up toward the ceiling as we inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to move them back and pull them back behind us so that way we can get a nice stretch on the front side of the shoulders. It's going to really engage your triceps to pull those arms back. You're also squeezing in between those shoulder blades. Let's go ahead and inhale those arms up again. And then exhale those arms back. Get a nice gentle stretch on the front side of that shoulder again. If you'd like to deepen this stretch, you can actually take one arm behind you and then grab the wrist of that arm and pull down. So you can do that on either side, that's just fine. When you're ready, go ahead and kind of shake out those arms a little bit. If you want to twist to either side a little bit, just find a little bit of movement. And then we're going to pull ourselves up onto all fours. So coming back to center, go ahead and pull yourself up onto hands and knees here. I'm actually going to turn around, I think, so that way you guys can see this a little bit better. So we're here on hands and knees first. We're going to walk our hands forward just slightly. And then leaning our elbows in close to our bodies, we're going to move into a plank, a modified plank position first, and then lower ourselves down all the way to the mat. And we're going to come into a series of kind of gradual locust poses. So here, we're going to start by raising our head and shoulders off the mat. Draw your arms down alongside your body first. But you're really engaging the backside of the shoulders. Taking a deep breath. Holding this for a little bit longer. And then drawing your hands underneath your shoulders. We're going to start to push ourselves up into that modified plank pose. And then shift our hips back into child's pose, leaving those knees close together if you can. Rolling up onto all fours again, walking those hands in front, coming back into our modified plank. We're going to lower down, keeping the elbows close. Keeping our head and chest lifted off the mat. This time we're going to draw our arms down alongside, but we're going to see if we can get our arms parallel to the floor. Really reaching down towards your pinky toes with those fingertips. Continuing to breathe. And drawing those hands back underneath the shoulders, pushing up into that modified plank once more, then shifting hips back into child's pose again. Taking a deep breath here. And gently pulling yourself up to all fours, walking those hands out once more, coming back into that modified plank. Again, belly button is in toward your spine. Then drawing a straight line if you can from your shoulder to your hip to your knees, and then you're going to lower yourself down. This time you're going to draw your shoulders and your head up off the mat. And take your hands again parallel to the floor. And if you would like, you can start to add one foot in at a time. All of these exercises are so good for us to help correct our posture, to help us open up our chest, help us look up. One more. And drawing those hands back underneath the shoulders, pushing up into modified plank. Sit back into child's pose again. If you would like, here, you can start to walk your hands off to one side of your body. Getting a deeper stretch on one side, and then walking your hands off to the other side. Again, getting a deeper stretch on the other side. Coming back to center. We're going to pull ourselves up onto all fours here for a moment. And then here, we're going to start to walk our hands back towards our knees. We're going to round ourselves up so we're standing on our knees. We're going to go ahead and sit down. And if you can, we're going to extend the left leg out in front first and sit all the way down so that way our ankle is back by our hip. So we've got one leg bent, one leg straight. And we're going to take the left hand back behind us at an angle, and we're going to lean and stretch into this right quad muscle here. Now, if this is not enough of a stretch, then that's just fine. If this feels good, feel free to stay here. But if it's not enough of a stretch for you, you can start to lean down on that back elbow, deepening the stretch on your quad here. Taking a deep breath or two. And then when you're ready, coming back up out of that position. We're going to bend this front leg so that we can get back to all fours. And then here we're going to walk our hands forward, Coming back into our modified plank pose, lowering all the way down to the mat. Here we're going to pull up onto our elbows, really deepening this stretch by pressing your elbows into the mat and then pulling your elbows in towards your body. For Sphinx pose. Keeping your shoulders down away from your ears, lengthening your neck. And then from here, we're going to cross that left hand in front of our body. We're going to reach back for our right foot, pulling that in toward our body. And again, if this feels good, then stay here. If you would like, you can start to press the top of that foot into the mat for half bow pose. Really feeling a deep stretch in the front side of that right arm. And then releasing that down. Coming back onto your elbows, returning to Sphinx pose. And then when you're ready, moving those hands underneath your shoulders once more, pressing up into modified plank, and then shifting your hips back again into child's pose. So you may already start feeling this in kind of your low back space as well as in your core. So just pay attention to your body, to what your body can and can't do today. When you're ready, you can start to pull yourself up onto all fours once more. We're going to lock our hands back towards our knees and very slowly round ourselves up. And then sitting down on top of those ankles. This time we're going to extend the right leg out in front if we can. We're going to sit down so that way our left ankle is close to that back hip. If you would like to get into this pose a different way, you're welcome to do that. So if it's easier for you to start from here and to then just shift your feet to the side and come down and sit and bring that foot out, then you're welcome to do that. So there's not a right or wrong way here to do this. And then when you're ready, we're going to take that right hand at an angle out behind our right hip. We're going to lean and stretch toward, stretch our hand toward that left thigh. And again, if this feels good, stay here. But if you need a little bit more, then start to come down onto that right elbow. Deepening the stretch. Still turning toward that left thigh. Take one more deep breath here. And then starting to come up out of that pose. We're going to go ahead and sweep this right foot off to the side, bringing ourselves back up onto all fours. Walking those hands forward, coming back into our modified plank. And if this is starting to bother your wrists, always feel free to make a fist. So you can come up onto your fists like this to help protect your wrists. Or you can always roll up your mat a couple of times to make sure that your wrists are supported in this pose as well. So again, leaving those elbows close into the body. We're going to lower ourselves down and come up into our Sphinx pose. So drawing those elbows right underneath the shoulders, taking those fingers out wide, tops of your thighs, the tops of your feet are on the mat. See if you can relax the low back space. That probably means you will also relax your glutes. Open up the chest. And then when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and start to move into the half bow pose on the other side. We're going to take that right hand across our body, For a little bit of support, we're going to reach back with the left, bringing the foot in toward the body. And again, if you would like to stay here, you're welcome to. Or if you would like to start to press the top of that foot into the palm of your hand, you'll start to move into half foot on the other side. Continuing to breathe. And then releasing that down to the mat, coming back down to your elbows. When you're ready, we're going to move those hands underneath our shoulders. And then push up into modified plank, shifting the hips back, coming back into child's pose. Now, if you are in a space where you are doing this with a close friend, or if you have like a weighted blanket around or something along those lines, sometimes when we're doing lots of gentle back bends like this, it can feel really good to have somebody come along and just press down on your hips in child's pose to kind of deepen that stretch, or you can drape a weighted blanket across your back right there, and that can deepen the stretch as well. And when you're ready, we're going to pull up again into all fours. Start to walk our hands back towards our knees, very slowly rounding ourselves up. Head should be the last thing that comes up. We're going to move into a modified camel pose. So that means we're taking our hands to the back side of our low back, almost like we're going to tuck them into our back pockets. We're going to draw those elbows back towards each other, opening up the chest. And then if you would like, you can start to look up toward the ceiling, opening up that chest. And then if you want to move a little deeper, you can start to shift your hips forward. If you want to come into the full expression of camel pose, you can start to move your hands down to your heels. But again, if this feels good, then stay here. One more breath here. And then start to work yourself up out of that pose, shifting your hips back, coming back into our child's pose. Very nice and slowly. As you pause here and kind of release your low back and continue to rest, I'm going to draw our attention back to Kate Shipp's words. Did you notice how many strategies she employed through this really tough time? When she talked about going for walks, she talked about journaling, she talked about praying, she talked about getting perspective, about, gosh, so many different things, about her yoga practice, right? About finding support systems and putting those in place. So just an encouragement for us that oftentimes we need many of those things or all of those things in our lives to get through either times of transition or transformation or times of grief. It's not just a, hey, I'm only going to do yoga and that's it. It is, we need all of those things, all of those supports in our lives. So when we're ready, we're going to pull ourselves back up onto all fours. Again, we're kind of familiar now with this pattern that we've been doing, right? Walking our hands forward, moving slowly into our modified plank, keeping the elbows closed, lowering ourselves down to the mat, coming up onto our elbows into Sphinx pose once more. From here, we're going to actually come back down to the mat. So you can take those hands on your shoulders And then draw those hands down alongside your body. We're going to start to bring our head and shoulders up off the mat. We're going to bring our hands or our arms parallel to the floor. And then this time, we're going to bend both of our feet in towards our body. You can kind of move to place the top of your foot into the palm of your hand on either side. Drawing those knees down toward the mat. If this feels good, you can stay here, or you can try to press the tops of your feet into the palms of your into the palms of your hand, and you're going to come up into what's called a full bow pose. And here you'll probably notice, as you continue to breathe, that you'll rock back and forth. One more breath here. And then releasing those knees down to the mat. And then taking those hands away, letting your feet fall down to the mat. You're going to start to take your hands underneath your shoulders, pushing yourself up again into modified plank, and then shifting your hips back, coming into child's pose. As always in this position, you can take your knees as wide as the mat, kind of let your body sink down in between your legs if that's more comfortable for you. And then from here, let me grab my notes real quick. We have one more pose to do on this side of things. So from here, you're going to pull up into all fours once more, walking those hands back towards your knees again, very slowly, rounding yourself up. This time we're going to take our hands, we're going to clasp them behind our backs and then pull down at our tailbone. Opening up that chest. If you would like, you can create a little bit of a wider stance here for a bit of balance. You can also pull your hips back towards the back of the room a little bit, and then you can fold forward, drawing those arms up overhead, getting a deeper stretch. If that's not comfortable for you, again, stay in this other pose. Or you can draw those arms back away from you to open up that chest a little deeper. And then releasing those arms, shaking them out a little bit. We're going to place our hands on the mat, walking back into our modified plank pose. Last pose on our bellies here. So drawing ourselves down toward the mat. This time we're going to draw both feet up off of the floor. So try and keep those lifted. We're going to take our hands and take them out to either side first. And then if you would like, you can start to move those hands to the back of your head. Take another breath here. See if you can leave your elbows lifted off the floor. And then extending your arms out to either side, placing those hands underneath your shoulders, allowing those feet to drop down. We'll go ahead and push up once more into modified plank. Then stretching back into child's pose. Then returning back onto our bellies, this time with our heads down. We're going to lift our feet up in the air and then wedge the like those feet back and forth. Release any tension you feel in that low back space. Taking some deep breaths. Exhaling through your mouth to let out any excess heat you're feeling in your body. One of the other things that Kate said in her writing was that she had to release some things. She had to go back and re-examine some things. She had to reconsider old boundaries, if those were still serving her well or not. So many times in moments of transition or transformation, we don't always consider what is blocking us moving forward. And sometimes it's something internal that we need to change perspective on. So coming back to center, go ahead and release those feet down. We are going to do a broken wing pose, is what it's called. So we're going to take the left hand straight out from the body. We're going to bring our right elbow straight out from the body, but we're going to bend the elbow. This is what's called tenting your fingers. And then we're going to draw the right knee up to the side, and then push the floor away, getting a little spinal twist, but also a little stretch on the front side of that left shoulder. And here you can lift your head. You can, push as deeply as you want to here. It doesn't have to be a big stretch, but if you're needing a little bit more today, feel free to adjust this pose. Returning down to the mat, go ahead and straighten out that right leg. This time, we're going to move our right arm straight out, turn to the other side, tent the left fingers up, bring the left knee up, and then pushing the mat away, again, as deeply as feels comfortable to you. Staying here for a few breaths. Releasing that down to the mat. Go ahead and lengthen that left leg. Straighten out the arms, bring them down to either side. Just take a few deep breaths here. And allowing your body to melt into the mat. Softening in places that feel tight or restricted if you can. And then we're going to put our hands underneath our shoulders, pushing up into our modified plank. We're going to draw the right knee forward, coming into pigeon pose on that right side, leaning forward over top of that bent knee. And if your head feels heavy in this pose, you can always make a couple of fists, one on top of each other, and rest your forehead down on top of your fists. If it feels fine and feels good, then feel free to stay here. Really nice, deep stretch in that glute. And we'll use those in our next series here. When you're ready, you can start to walk your hands underneath your shoulders, sliding that right knee back. We're going to bring the left knee forward this time, coming into pigeon pose on the other side, and then folding forward over top of that bent leg once more. Again, taking some really nice deep breaths. I love this part where Kate writes, I listened, I got very, very still. I listened more. I began to emerge. I started to see things quite differently. I made new choices. I kept things quiet. I kept hearing just wait. Then I shifted, like a kaleidoscope that can never go back to what it once showed. It wasn't a moment of fireworks. It was so subtle, so soft, so gentle, and yet the impact inside my nervous system and heart was so powerful that I have not been the same since. So let's just consider those words as we continue to move our bodies. When you're ready, you can go ahead and work your way up into all fours again. This time we're going to shift over to our backs, coming into a lying down on your back pose here. We're going to start here by pressing our feet into the mat, drawing our shoulders down away from our ears, starting to lift our hips up toward the ceiling for bridge pose. Thinking about, again, drawing that line from shoulder, hip to knee. And then coming down on your next exhale, one vertebrae at a time. Relaxing that low back space. And then when you're ready, pressing your feet into the mat again, peeling that spine up, lifting your hips toward the ceiling. This time, if you can, think about kind of working your shoulders down away from your ears a little bit more, kind of almost rolling on the top side of those shoulders. Coming into more of a back bend with this pose. And if you would like, you can start to grab or to work your hands toward each other, clasping your hands together. Again, pulling down towards your tailbone for a deeper expression of this pose. Continuing to breathe. And then releasing those hands down. Again, coming down one vertebrae at a time. And the next time, we're going to go ahead and press those hips up toward the ceiling. And then we're going to see if we can walk our feet in towards our bodies a little bit further, reaching our hands down, seeing if we can either touch our heels or wrap onto our ankles. You'll feel the center of gravity kind of shift when you do this. So you might feel this a little bit more in your hamstrings and also in there's a muscle called the psoas, so you might feel it there as well. And then kind of inching those feet away and go ahead and come down one vertebrae at a time. This time drawing your knees into your chest, rocking back and forth across that low back. Continuing to breathe deeply. If you would like, you can go ahead and try kind of the next deeper expression of this pose, which is where you start to place your hands alongside of your head. And when you push up into bridge pose, then you also start to see if you can lift your upper body off of the mat as well for something called wheel, or when I was little, we used to call that back bend. And so you can try that if that feels comfortable to you in your body, if you have the strength to do that as well. If not, we're going to stay here in this pose, taking a few deep breaths. Again, checking in with ourselves, thinking about the meditative words that we read earlier about what God designed gifts that are inside of each of us. When you're ready, you can start to work one leg down and then the other leg down, coming into your final relaxation position. And then while you continue to lay there, I'm going to read these words for us one more time. She says, "Then I shifted, like a kaleidoscope that can never go back to what it once showed. It wasn't a moment of fireworks. It was so subtle, so soft and so gentle. And yet the impact inside my nervous system and heart was so powerful that I have not been the same since." Give yourself permission to embody the authenticity of the blueprint of God's design. Let me go ahead and pray for us as we close. Feel free to continue to lie down on your mat, or if you would like, you're welcome to push yourself up into a gentle seated position. Let me pray for us. So God, thank you that you have designs for us. Lord, that you have things inside of each of us that you have not yet revealed. Lord, that there is hope for the ways that you will continue to reveal those things to us, to heal us, to help us rediscover, to give us courage to move forward. God, we're grateful. And Lord, we ask you to continue to shift things inside of us like a kaleidoscope, revealing new patterns and new visions to each of us. Thank you that you're here with us through each of these steps and through each of these transformations or transitions or grief or whatever it might be that we are going through. We love you, and it's in your name